Hi, welcome to Straight Talk. I want to welcome all of our new viewers who are viewing us either in a syndicated city or on the AmetysRecoveryCenters.com website, where you can now see the show anywhere in the world and get it right up to date of what we're providing. And again, our goal is to educate you about the opiate epidemic and the other drug issues so that obviously we can help people. That's what it's about. Now today on Straight Talk, I've gotten a lot of people who have asked us to kind of talk about what treatment really is. What happens in treatment? How do you get somebody in treatment? And what's the process? So that's what we're going to do the whole show. And we have a wonderful guest who is from Georgia, Debbie Ray, who is the clinical director of the Georgia Addiction Treatment Center.
Correct.
And welcome
Thank you.
to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. And you're a clinical director, so you can clinically help us understand everything about treatment.
Right.
So what would I'd like just kind of begin at the beginning. When someone suspects that someone they love, someone they care about, has an addiction problem,
Right.
and they know it's beyond just use and it's become
More of a problem.
Yeah, first of all, how do you tell that difference? And then let's get into making the process to get them into the Georgia Addiction Treatment Center.
So when we first get a client, one of the very first things we do is contact the family. And we do a family assessment. And that is one of the questions. How do you know? How does this impact you? How do you know when your loved one is using? And oftentimes, the answer is they're just not themselves. They're away from home a lot more. Their mood has changed. They're not doing the things that they enjoy anymore. And when that gets more and more consistent, that's when they tend to say, okay, we need to do the next step. Maybe there's more fighting in the home. Money is being spent and they don't know, where it's going. So that's when, they start doing some research.
And these are things that they've been noticing for a while at home.
Right.
But now they'll call you, and then you'll have them all come in.
Right. So we get our clients from, friends and family referrals. People will, we have lovely internet now, so people will do the research online, find our websites. They will talk to their neighbors. They'll talk to their doctors. We have this great outreach contact center and outreach program. So they just start talking, and they start talking to people who have had successes. And so when they get in contact with us, they will do an assessment typically to kind of see which of our programs is best for them. We are a dual diagnosis program, so and that's very common, because typically with substance abuse and addiction, there is depression, there is anxiety, oftentimes there's trauma. And so one thing that Georgia Addiction does very well is kind of handles all of those things. So once they do their assessment and they figure out how and when they can get there, we welcome them in.
Let's stop there for a second. You talk about doing the assessment.
Right.
Now, who comes in? I call. I've got a 25-year-old son. He's blah blah blah, and you say, well, come in. Now, who comes in? Who do you assess? Is it just the person who may have a problem, or is it the whole family?
Initially, it is a phone assessment, just to kind of see which program is going to work best for them. And so once they get to say, we're going to come to Georgia Addiction, typically, it'll be the client. Sometimes if they're local, it'll be the client and their family. The assessment is done just with the client alone. And like I said, about 24 hours later, we'll call the family and do that assessment with them. Because oftentimes they have a whole new set of issues that they want to work on. That's different than what the client actually needs to work on.
I mean, the addict may be downplaying their use.
It happens.
And then you got to get the family perspective of what's really going on, because it's affecting their lives.
Oftentimes we hear, make sure they talk about this and make sure they talk about that. So, our job is to make sure we are talking to as many people that surround our client as possible to get the whole picture and to help the whole
because you have to now make a decision, or your clinicians have to decide, okay, I have all this information. Now, where do we go? Like you said, what's the best program for them?
Right. So, one of the things that I do is to assign a client to a therapist. And I have 3 great therapists that I work with at Georgia Addiction, and they're all great at different things. I have Herb Church, who is great at trauma, and he works great with our younger crowd. I have Kanisha, who, you know, is kind of the kind but straightforward therapist who can kind of handle, you know, my moms and kind of the, you know, the younger boys. And then I have Kim, who is the mom. So the people who just need kind of the tender touch, as she is great with. So, you know, so they all have their specialties. Like I said, Herb is great with the younger generation, and anyone who has trauma, whether they're on my caseload or his caseload, we will send them also to Herb for some individual trauma sessions as well.
Now, when someone is going into a program like that, any place, and they that match between a counselor and what's best.
It's important.
That's important. And then the family gets involved with that as well.
Right, right. Like I said, you know, Kim is great with our families, but it is huge. Herb and Mark, who works with us, we have started a family program. It's every Wednesday night. And it's so exciting to watch. You know, we're relatively a new program.
Yeah.
So seeing all of these changes and the growth that we are doing, it's really exciting. They are starting to work more with the community, to give back to the community that, you know, they live in and that, you know, they're being treated in. They are kind of mentoring each other as new people come in. Some of the families that have been around for a while take the newcomers under their wing, and that is so, so important to have that support.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on in the show, about aftercare and what happens when they do that. Okay, good start. We're talking with Debbie Ray, who is the clinical director of the Georgia Addiction Treatment Center. Make sure I get it right. And she's here to help walk us through the treatment process. We're going to take a short break and come back and then talk about what happens when you're actually in treatment, when the client's there, what goes on every day. So stay with us, and we're coming right back to Straight Talk.
Every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music just like other families do over sports, camping, or other interests. And we talked. Little everyday conversations from silly to serious that built a foundation over time. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life. And I was so grateful that you and Mom had become these sober, stable people who were always there for me.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, whether it's music or anything else. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Hi, welcome back to Straight Talk. We're talking with Debbie Ray, who is a clinical director of the Georgia Addiction Treatment Center, and she's helping us understand what happens when a person goes to treatment. What's the process? What do they go through? What's the family go through? And we've got our pretend client evaluated and getting ready to go in. Now, as clinical director, you probably sit down with whoever did the assessment, and somehow you have to make a determination what level of treatment is best. Now, how do you do that?
So if a client comes in and they have a significant using history, a significant maybe trauma background, our belief is long-term care is the best. And why not? Why not, do whatever you can do now? I always say, let's make this your last treatment.
Right.
So we love to recommend PHP.
Now, what is that?
PHP is it's our program that they come in at 9:30 in the morning, and they are there for 6 hours of group treatment, individual work a day. Every morning we have what we call our goal setting session. So if they're in PHP, they come in at 9:30, they do a goal setting session, which lasts about a half an hour. And then they do a process group with their individual therapist. The process group is really run by the clients. They check in, they talk about how they feel. It is a process to teach them to talk about issues that are going on, to ask for help, to say, this is how I feel today, and get feedback from the rest of the group, to know that they're not alone, to get support. Because oftentimes we don't ask for help. We don't talk about how we feel. We are, a society that is basically taught, suck it up and keep on moving.
Yeah, sure.
And so our job is to say, let's slow down. Let's talk about how we're feeling. Because all of this stuff we're doing is to change our mood, to stop what's going on with us right now. So process group is that time to say, I need help. I do need help. Something's going on. I'm stressed about going back to work. I have legal issues. I have this trauma that gets in my way. And so it's an opportunity to talk about the things that might be bothering them from day to day or from their past.
Now, they show up at 9 o'clock. Now, where are they coming from? From their homes, from their, or do you have?
Half of our clients live at home. So, where we're located, some of our clients live, anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes away. And so they will drive in and live from home in order to come into treatment. And then we have other clients that come from all over the country. And so we do have housing for all of our PHP clients, and we have separate housing.
So they can actually live in a sober house.
Exactly.
And that's monitored.
24/7 monitored.
So they're, and then they come, would you transport them to the center
Yes.
for counseling? So it's almost like they're under your control 24 hours a day.
For PHP,
so it's like residential.
Absolutely. PHP, they're monitored, and they're in our care 24 hours a day. They eat together.
That's good.
They go to the movies together. They go to workshops together. They go to AA meetings, NA meetings, nightly together. We really want to have them learn to have that support, learn to be in a community of others in recovery. That's really important.
Yeah. So it is almost like very intensive. That's good. That's good.
It is. We have a great staff that monitors it, and to make sure that they're treated as family. And like I said, learn to kind of have each other as that support. To have someone where if you get off the phone with your husband or your son, and they're still angry at you, and it feels bad, that you have someone that you can turn to and go, oh, that stinks. That stinks. I want to move past this, and I want to get to the next level. But that there's always someone there to talk to about it.
And it sounds like group seems to be really important in addiction treatment.
Absolutely. It is the #1 treatment process for addiction, because no one wants to feel alone. There's a lot of guilt and shame that comes from using and being in addiction. So, to be able to say, this is a consequence of my behavior. This is a consequence of my disease and my using, and to have someone go, I did it too. You're not alone in that. You are not a bad person. You have a bad disease. It makes all the difference in the world.
Do you see that group dynamic, helping each other? Like maybe somebody's sober a little longer than the other person, or he's clean, and they can relate to where they were.
Absolutely.
Couple weeks earlier.
And I find that oftentimes too, when they get really close and begin to care about each other in that group, they will listen to each other sometimes more than they will listen to us. If someone says, I see you sliding, you're not doing what you used to do, or, what's going on? You're not you're not as bubbly as you were 2 days ago. They know each other. They're around each other 24/7 in that process. And so
Now, how long can that PHP last?
It's usually around 30 days.
30 days?
Mm-hmm.
Can it go longer, or is it?
It definitely can.
Okay.
You know, again, I believe that it is, you know, the best care. You know, it took a long time to get to where they are, and it's going to take a long time to get them to the other side.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about time. It's, you know, we had the, everyone says, well, 28 day has always been, and that's doesn't seem to be enough.
It's not.
I mean, the longer you can stay, the better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, addiction and recovery, it's not about just not using anymore. It's about changing your way of life. It's about changing your thinking, healing some of the hurts that are still there. But, you know, there are addictive behaviors that have absolutely nothing to do with using and picking up. You know, we'll have clients all the time say, I'm still lying all the time because that's what I had to do to cover up my addiction. I don't know why I'm still lying. I have nothing to lie about. You know, I can put my head down and all my secrets are out, but those habits can still be there. So that's the kind of stuff that just takes time.
But, right, I was just going to say, it sounds like you've got to get to a certain point in treatment, which is why the longer, that could take somebody several weeks to get to that point. Now you're just ready to do some real work.
Absolutely.
And that's why longer term residential control, or the PHP, as you call it, is important. Now, when they go through that, say they go through a couple months and they're doing well, would they step down to another level that's a little more freedom, I guess, or?
Absolutely. So when they are done with the PHP program, our goal is to always step them down to IOP. And when they are in IOP, they come to treatment half the day. We are working on, you know, getting them to volunteer, to get jobs. We have a new class to teach them some business skills and to rebuild their sense of self-worth, because oftentimes that gets a little hurt and injured in the process. So, you know, we want them to, you know, start living that purposeful life again. Get out there, work, feel good, just start to rebuild.
Now, are they still living with you at that point?
They absolutely can.
See, that's great.
Absolutely can. And I always believe too, you know, when they're in our housing and in our care and doing the IOP work, I think that's when they can start having some skin in the game too. This is mine, and I want to work for it, and I want to hold on to it. But it also is that great transition to, you know, still having the protection of being in the house, of having a place to come to on a daily basis and being accountable and having that support. But, you know, kind of taking those baby steps back
like a little safety net under them. All right, we're talking with Debbie Ray, who's a clinical director of the Georgia Addiction Treatment Center. And again, we're walking through the treatment process. So if you're just joining us, you can get on the website, AmetusRecoveryCenter.com, go to Straight Talk, and you'll be able to watch the show from the beginning, or any of the other shows we've done over the last few years about opiates and addiction. So we're going to take a short break, come right back, and continue talking about treatment.
Matthew.
Huh? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I just need you to listen to me.
I know that a lot of times, Mom, it might not seem like I'm listening to you, but I am. I hear you. And what you say really does matter to me.
I mean, let's be honest. No kid likes rules, but I get why we have them. I hear you, and I know it's because you care.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thanks, Mom, for never giving up and always being my biggest fan.
Thank you for letting me know what you expect, so I can try to meet your expectations.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So they say it's a man's world? Well, I don't see anybody's name on it. While they were out doing their thing, we slowly changed all that. We changed all that. Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Hi, welcome back to Straight Talk. We're talking with Debbie Ray, who is the clinical director of the Georgia Addiction Treatment Center, and she's doing a phenomenal job helping us understand treatment. What happens? What really goes on inside a treatment center? What the addict is going through in their recovery, and what the family's going through. And we've got, you know, we got to the point now where they're in treatment. They've been doing pretty well. They're stepping down, you know, and maybe integrating more into society.
Right.
We hear so much about relapse. We hear so much about, well, you have to go to treatment 3, 4, 5 times before it really sticks. And give me, how does that, you've been in this field a while, what does that all mean?
You know, you don't have to go 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Right.
I tell my clients all the time, you know, we are a 12-step program. And I tell them all the time, leave it here. Don't go home with anything. Don't go home with a secret. Put it all on your first step. Don't leave with a regret. Because I think if people leave and they, you know, oh, I should have said that one thing, or I wasn't really honest about that, that's when I feel relapses tend to happen. When clients come back into treatment, they will often say, I quit doing the things that I knew worked, and yep, I wasn't really honest when I only told you half the story, or I only put what I felt comfortable sharing in group or on my paperwork or in my first step. So we don't have to come, you know, 3, 4, 5 times, but there's also no shame in that as well. You know, do whatever you have to do. This is a life and death situation. Right. So it's worth it. You know, if it takes more than one time, come on back. You know, clients will often say, I was afraid. I was afraid to come back because I didn't want you disappointed. Or, you know, I was afraid you'd be mad. We are just happy you were able to walk through the door.
Do you see that when you see that person coming back, do you see that they've made some progress? So instead of starting from ground zero,
absolutely,
you might be a couple steps up because they've learned a few things. They just forgot to do it?
Yes. There was this gentleman not too long ago, and he had been he had gone to treatment a couple of times and had several years of recovery, and he came in and he kind of had this tough attitude, and I just sat him down one day and I said, you could probably teach me more about recovery than I know. You know, you've lived it, you know the steps, you've been to meetings, you've led meetings, but my job now is to help you learn about your life. And so, you know, you have that mix. You know, my philosophy is treatment is like an iceberg. So the using and the behaviors, that's what people see. It's the stuff underneath that we can help. So when you kind of shrink that down, that's when life gets more manageable, and we can start doing the steps, doing the next right thing. We don't need to change our mood as quickly. We can handle the tough things in life a little more easily.
But addicts are used to having immediate gratification. So, and that's why I say before about having them stay as long as, you said that even earlier, the longer they can stay, the better.
Right.
Now, I'm assuming that families are part of this process as much as possible.
Yes, that is our goal.
Yeah.
That is our goal. It's a family disease. You know, I hear a lot of families say, I remember things they won't ever remember. I've seen behaviors and nights and been up worried and scared, and they don't remember that. And so we treat them together and separately because they have their own recovery that they need to do. They have their own work, their own recovery, their own healing, forgiveness, and have to learn to trust again. And that's our job as well. So, you know, our client is not just the person who lives in our house or stays in our groups during the day. It's their family, it's their community as well.
And so so the family piece is like a real big part.
It's a really big part. It is a really big part.
And like you said, they might go through their own program as well as working as a family.
Absolutely.
Because they have to be, they have to be supportive. They have to know how to handle things in the new world of recovery.
Absolutely, yes. You know, and not love them to death, because oftentimes families, you know, they want to protect so much. If I'm there, if I do this, they won't use or they won't relapse. And if I do this, you know, maybe they won't die. And if I make their life easier, you know, maybe they won't pick up again. And that's a full-time job that they don't need to have. So, you know, part of our job is to say, go, let's get your life back. Let's get your life back. So they have to be in charge of their own recovery, and you have to be in charge of yours. And then we're going to meet somewhere down the road in the middle.
So if we have people watching who either have been in treatment and left, and now they're, like you said, feeling guilty about it, your recommendation is get back to treatment.
Get back.
Go back.
There's no judgment on our end. And we understand walking through that door into a treatment program is probably the scariest day of their life. It's the scariest day of the client's life, and for the family, they can finally start to breathe again because their client is safe with us. They're, you know, monitored 24/7 in our PHP house. You know, they don't have to wonder where they are. They don't have to wonder what they're doing. They know that they are safe.
So
but we understand that that's a scary process.
Yeah, so go back. So, you know, Debbie, we're running out of time. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For doing this, and I think we got some information. I hope all of you listen to what Debbie was talking about when she was talking about, if you're out there, you know, pick up the phone, get on the website, make that call. You know, Amadeus Recovery Centers are out there. They're helping to sponsor all these programs. Go to their website. You can watch our Straight Talk shows. You can learn how to get help. That's what's important. All this is about helping people. Someone you love, someone you know, or yourself. So please, if you're at that point where you have a problem or you know somebody, make that call. And if you've been in treatment and you relapse, that's okay. Just go back. Just keep going back and stay as long as you can. So I want to thank Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Straight Talk, and we'll see you next time.